What is actually bigger for you still as a Ferrari driver? Racing here or now racing in a race in Italy, for example?
Racing here is always going to be the biggest for me.
Yeah?
Yeah. Obviously, I can't. Imola isn't on the scale of this race. It's my home Grand Prix. My family come to this one, so it's very special. I can't tell you what's going to happen in Italy because I've not experienced it yet. But I'm sure it's pretty epic. But with all the tifosi and all the people that are at the heart of what this team is all about. But I'm around my people, so I love that.
And here at Silverstone, time and time again, do you think there's any chance for this to repeat itself this weekend?
I really don't know, and I would never want to jinx it, even if it was. So, of course, in my heart, I'm hoping just for a strong weekend. I've not had a podium yet, so this would be the place. This would be a really special place in order to have that. So I'm really counting on the amazing support we have here to hopefully try and make the difference.
Can you imagine what it means to Lewis Hamilton run for the first time your grand prize, dressed in red Ferrari? What emotions, pressures, and objectives are accompanied in this historic return to Silverstone? Lewis Hamilton has just pronounced one of the most personal and significant statements of his career. It is not another phrase. It is a confession, a total openness to its emotions before an event that has the potential to redefine its legacy. He said that competing in Silverstone for the first time with Ferrari will be really special. And with those words, not only underlines a novelty in his career, but introduces us to a moment loaded with symbolism, nostalgia, and transformation. We are not simply talking about a pilot running at home. We are talking about a 7-time world champion, returning to the emotional epicenter of his career, but now with the colors of a team that for decades was direct rival of his previous team. This is living history of Formula One developing in front of our eyes. Silverstone is not another track for Hamilton. It is a sanctuary. From his childhood, from the days in which he watched from the stands to his idols with the dream of one day to be in that same asphalt, to become the most successful pilot in the history of the circuit with 9 victories, his link with this layout is unbreakable. When he says that "the crowd is always with me," is not a courtesy phrase. It is a palpable reality, an almost physical connection. Over the years, he has fed on the roar of that British Tribune, has turned his energy into emotional fuel. But now the stage is completely different. He is wearing red Ferrari. A shirt that for millions means tradition, glory, but also expectation and pressure. That pressure multiplies when one lands in Silverstone, a circuit that not only represents a technical challenge but a global showcase. And Hamilton knows, this is not any career. It is the opportunity to demonstrate that Mercedes' change to Ferrari was more than a sports decision. It was a declaration of principles. In the background, running at home with the Scuderia represents a kind of personal redemption, a second life, a way of reinventing itself in front of its people, in front of the paddock, in front of themselves. And this is where the human component becomes strength. Because behind the multi-champion there is a man facing a new beginning. There are no guarantees, there are no certainties, only the echo of a crowd that hopes to see if this new chapter will live up to the previous ones. And when Hamilton mentions that he hopes to see the British flag with some red caps out there, he is talking about something deeper than merchandising or colors. He is asking for loyalty. It is pleading that support does not depend on the uniform, but on respect for the trajectory, to effort, to the courage to make a difficult decision at 40 years. He is saying, I'm still the same pilot, the same warrior, only with another armor. Beyond the emotions that awaken see Lewis Hamilton dressed in red in front of his audience, there is a reality that cannot be ignored. Ferrari in 2025 is a team that is still looking for a clear identity. Despite the flashes of progress shown in Austria, Maranello's team still does not reach the necessary technical consistency to compete from U to U with McLaren and Red Bull in all scenarios. Emotional euphoria cannot hide the structural challenges facing the SF-25, a car that has proven unstable, difficult to configure, and extremely demanding with the tires. Hamilton said it without filters. The team has made a mega progress, but that does not mean that they have solved all the problems that are in the Red Bull ring. Hamilton matched his best result of the year with a 4th place. It would seem on paper a big step, but when it is observed in detail how it was achieved, the limitations appear. The SF-25 was equipped with a new soil, an aerodynamic modification that in theory did not promise a revolution, but that on the track was felt like a breath of fresh air. The British pilot acknowledged that this new component allowed them to approach more than ever to the rhythm of the leaders. He said that, for the first time, we are not a minute behind McLaren. But that statement contains something more complex. It is not that Ferrari is now at the level of the best, it is that the rest took a small step back in that private layout and Ferrari simply capitalized. In other words, more than a structural leap, it was a favorable coincidence. In addition, the internal operation of the car continues to generate doubts. One of the biggest problems is balance management. Leclerc can pilot with extreme survival, sliding the rear train without that punishing him too much in tire wear. Hamilton, on the contrary, suffers a mass deterioration if it applies the same style. This reveals something deep. The SF-25 is a car that favors a very specific type of driving, which creates a gap among its pilots. Carlos Sainz took 2 years to understand how to adapt to that dynamic. And now it is Hamilton who is facing that learning curve. This internal lag between piloting styles, more than an anecdote, is a sign that the car is not designed for universality, but for a very narrow operational window. The other critical aspect is the performance management method. Ferrari has opted for conservative techniques to prevent car defects from becoming evident in the race. One of them is the lift and coast, a strategy in which the pilot raises the foot of the accelerator before usual and lets the car roll without applying power. This technique not only helps to save fuel or manage brakes, it also relieves stress on the march height of the car, which is one of the weakest points of the SF-25. In simple words, if they don't, the car bounces, loses stability, and ceases to be competitive. The technical summary is clear. Ferrari has improved, but is still far from offering Hamilton the car you need to fight for the championship. There are advances, yes, but these advances are still fragmentary, dependent on specific conditions, and too sensitive to temperature, asphalt changes, or even the driving style of the pilot himself. What in Austria was a step forward, it could not mean anything in Silverstone, where the level of aerodynamic demand and the need for balance are even greater. This block reminds us that, although the romanticism of seeing Hamilton with Ferrari in Silverstone is a historical postcard, that image must live with a raw truth. Today, the car is not ready to fight for consistent victories. And Silverstone, one of the most complete paths of the calendar, will not forgive that reality. The pilot's talent can mitigate the problem, but not eliminate it. Because in Formula One, the emotion can gain headlines, but it is the data and engineering that gain races. Lewis Hamilton's decision to leave Mercedes to join Ferrari was not a simple contractual movement. It was an act of rupture, a vacuum leap with a clear objective: to rewrite the narrative of his career at a stage where many opt for comfort, not because of the risk. At age 40, after having conquered 7 world titles, led the hybrid era and becoming the most laureate pilot in modern history, Hamilton took the most complex path: start from scratch. But not in any team. In Ferrari, the most demanding, more symbolic, and most pressured team by history. This movement has an emotional background as powerful as technical. Ferrari not only represents a competitive challenge, it represents a legend, a myth, a religion within Formula One. Dressing in red is not the same as signing with any team. It is accepting a legacy that goes beyond the championships. It is to up to names like Niki Lauda, Michael Schumacher, Alberto Ascari. For Hamilton, assuming that weight in Silverstone, in the circuit that has witnessed its greatest deeds, is not a coincidence. It is a declaration of principles. The moment could not be more symbolic. The most successful pilot in his country returns home, not as a defender champion, but as a new candidate, seeking to consecrate himself under a different flag, while still being British. Here is the essence of this emotional burden. Hamilton is trying a delicate act of balance, conserving the love and respect of the British public while representing a foreign team that has historically had an ambiguous relationship with the pilots of their land. Ferrari has had icons of many nationalities, but with the British, the story has been more complex. From Nigel Mansell to Eddie Irvine, few have found stability and total recognition in Maranello. Hamilton knows it. And in that conscience, a silent but powerful motivation is hidden: to break that pattern and become the first British pilot who conquered Ferrari and his fans without losing the connection with his own people. Therefore, when he expresses his desire to see the British flag with some red caps out there, he is asking for more than circumstantial support. It is appealing to a sense of emotional continuity, that the love does not depend on the color of the car, but on the soul that leads it. He is building a symbolic bridge between his glorious past with Mercedes and his uncertain but exciting present with Ferrari. He wants his hobby to accompany him in this journey not only as followers, but as witnesses of a human evolution. This is not a simple new chapter. It is possibly the last great act of one of the most iconic races of motoring. And like any final act that is respected, it needs drama, You need emotion, you need a decent scenario. Silverstone is. This is not just a matter of track performance. It is a crossroads where the technique, emotion, media pressure, and the desire to transcend are mixed. Is Hamilton's experience and talent enough to compensate for the shortcomings of the SF-25? Can convert the energy of the British fans into impulse to overcome McLaren, Mercedes, or even Verstappen? Or will we see a pilot fighting the limits of his car and the weight of his own decisions? I want to know what you think. Do you think this triumphal return to Silverstone will be remembered as one of the most iconic moments of his career, or will end up being an uphill battle without tangible reward? Leave your analysis, your prediction, or even your doubt in the comments.